How's it going, everybody? Episode 4 of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated with myself, Tom Cavanaugh. And we're going to get things kicked off, kind of breaking down this Iowa Hawkeyes team. The UCLA Bruins will be back at home in Westwood at the Rose Bowl to take on the Hawkeyes that have the best record that this team's going to see for the remainder of the season. 4 games left for the Bruins on the year, and the 6-3 Iowa Hawkeyes coming off a couple of big wins. I mean, this team put 40 pieces on both Northwestern and Wisconsin, beat the Wildcats 40-14, and then took down the Badgers last Saturday night 42-10. This offense, I mean, this is not your traditional Hawkeyes offense. They added a new offensive coordinator this past season, head coach Kurt Ferentz. His son, Brian, was actually the offensive coordinator there for a few years. He was fired at the end of last season, and they brought in a new man, Tim Lester, who spent several seasons as the head coach at Western Michigan, was also on the Green Bay Packers organization last season. And Hawkeyes bring him over, and he's revamped this offense. They're ranked 4th in points per game. They're averaging just over 30 points per game because of Lester and because of this running game. When you look at the matchup, it's kind of funny. You have 2 teams that rank at the top and the very bottom running the football in the Big Ten Conference this season. Number 1 is the Hawkeyes. They're averaging about 222 rush yards a game, which is absurd. They've been up at the top all year long in the conference when it comes to running the ball. And then for UCLA, they're the worst team. The only team that doesn't average 100 yards on the ground, averaging 73.9 rush yards per game. So it's the best versus the worst in the run category. And that does not bode well for the UCLA defense, really. They did an okay job stopping the run against Nebraska last week. Dante Dowdell, he was the Huskers running back. He had quite a pretty good day. And the Hawkeyes are looking to kind of do the same exact thing. When you look up and down the numbers for this Hawkeye team, their rush game runs through one guy with 1,279 yards. Caleb Johnson, the junior, he has been fabulous. The next closest rusher has 260 yards. So it's really the offense running through Johnson. He's already got 19 touchdowns on the season. He's been a force to be reckoned with against any team he's played against all year long. And when you look at the Hawkeyes, you think running the football as you always have, but they're doing it at a higher clip than they have over the last several seasons. So that offensive line doing a really nice job of being people movers, opening holes, letting Johnson do one of two things: be that goal to go back, and then also ripping off huge runs. He's averaging about 7.5 yards per carry this season, which is very, very, very impressive. Hawkeyes passing the ball, they are the worst team in the Big Ten, averaging 133 yards per game. I mean, this is a team that's been ran by Cade McNamara, former Michigan quarterback. He's only got just over 1,000 yards this season on 104 pass attempts. And then you look at the touchdown to turnover ratio. He's got 6 tutties and 5 picks on the year. He's also been sacked 8 times, which is a very low number for a team. So it's weird. McNamara's got time in the pocket. He's not getting pressured too often, but it's either the separation from the wide receivers, the tight ends, or it's McNamara just not being too accurate with the football. You go back to the Hawkeyes' last loss that came a few weeks ago in the middle of October to Michigan State. They really couldn't get much offense going at all through the passing game. McNamara only threw for 150 yards and a touchdown. It was all the running game that kept that game not really that close. They lost to Sparty 32-20. It was Caleb Johnson who ripped off a 75-yard touchdown run late in the game to kind of get their offense moving a little bit. But this team has won 3 of their last 4 games, and each of 3 of those last 4 wins, they've posted 40 points, taking down Washington 40-16 back in early October. So they'll battle UCLA. That's going to be a night game, 9 p.m. on a Friday night. How the Big Ten works nowadays over the last season, they have a deal where one Big Ten game must be played on a Friday night before the Saturday common slate. So this week it's going to be UCLA hosting this Iowa Hawkeyes team, and it's really going to be on the Hawkeyes defense to stop the run. Now the pass game, they can kind of manage through that. Look back to last week. Dylan Raiola of the Nebraska Cornhuskers did not have a great day throwing the ball. He was sub 200, had an interception or two interception. No, he had one interception, and then the backup came in through a pick as well. So defensively through the air, UCLA has got that on lockdown. When it comes to the run game, they have to be able to find a way to shut down Caleb Johnson because that guy is legit. And the Hawkeyes do a really nice job of finding ways to get him the football in space. And he's also good between the tackles, too. So when you look at that, it's going to be UCLA having to stop the run against the team that's going to be forced to do so. Like we said, worst passing team in the league. They are not going to go off for 350 yards through the air. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be dependent on their run game to be able to get chunk yardage, score several times, and put up another 40 ball because, I mean, when you look at their average points per game, they're about just under 31 points a game. And that's wild. You look at their wins this season, 40, 38, 31, 40, 40, 42. When they win ball games, they're putting up upwards of 40 points every single game. So if the Bruins are able to find a way to keep that number around the mid-20s, which is where Michigan State kept them, right at 20 points and won by 12, Bruins got a good chance to win this game. Now, Iowa, they're in the upper echelon of the Big Ten Conference this season just because of the way they run the ball. They are not a complete two-dimensional team. They're just going to solely rely on Caleb Johnson. So if they're able to get some pressure, which has been hard to get pressure on Cade McNamara this year, that's only going to bode well for them. But it's also going to have the Hawkeyes forced to run the football, and that should work better. The Bruins will kind of be a little more in tune to that. They'll understand that ball is going to be going to Caleb Johnson on the ground. And a guy like Carson Schlesinger, who just won Player of the Game for his performance against Nebraska, he's a semifinalist for the Butkus Award. That guy is going to be a big, big piece for the Bruins defense to really stop the run, as well as several others. But when you look at that defensive front for UCLA and their secondary, Kalen Moore, he had a really nice game through the passing game, had a huge interception late. Kane Medrano, he's another linebacker to help out Schlesinger. So being able to plug up those holes, stop the run, is going to be a way for the Bruins to limit this Iowa team that whenever they win a ball game, I mean, they're coming out hot. They're scoring a ton of points. And you got to give a lot of credit to Hawkeye head coach Kirk Ferentz for hiring Tim Lester, because this team was, I mean, you look at last year, they were averaging maybe 12 points a game, 15 maybe. They were not winning. They were winning games, but they were not winning them by a big margin. And that's also a credit to their defense, because Iowa's defense right now, they're middle of the pack in both categories. Passing and running the football, sit about 5th or 6th within the conference. So they're a team that can be scored on. Other teams have found success against them, aka Michigan State, who's an okay team. Obviously, Ohio State put 35 points on them. And then they lost to Iowa State in week 2 early in the season, giving up 20 points. So if UCLA, Ethan Garber is the quarterback for this Bruins team, and also their running game is able to get going. I know the Bruins don't have the best running group. Jalen Berger, the former Michigan State Spartan, he's got to be one of the better chances for them. TJ Harden, those guys need to find a way to get going, but it's going to be tough. The ball is going to be heavily relied on in the hands of Garbers in the pocket. He had a pretty good amount of time against Nebraska, who's got a good pass rush. He was flooded out of the pocket, but the good thing for the Bruins is that's a running quarterback. And when you go back to that Michigan State game, we've already talked about it a few times. Their quarterback, Aiden Childs, he was a running quarterback. So whenever he was flushed out of the pocket by the pressure of the Hawkeyes, he was able to make some moves with his feet, step up to the line of scrimmage, throw a nice toss for a couple of yards, a first down or two. And it's better to work against this Hawkeye defense if you have a mobile quarterback, and that's exactly what the Bruins have. So when you look at points of emphasis for this game and you're eyeing down this Iowa team on both sides, it's going to be stopping the run and using the pass game on offense to dart through and be able to score some points to win this ball game. I want to give a big thank you to everybody tuning in tonight on the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast with myself, Tom Cavanaugh, on Sports Illustrated. You can catch all of our content at UCLA Bruins on SI, wherever you find your content. You can go over to Twitter as well and find us at UCLA Insider on SI. It's been Tom Cavanaugh, another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.